Welcome to the Coffee Snobs podcast, where we just really love good coffee.
So grab your cup of coffee and join us each episode as we explore any and everything coffee related.
From pour-overs to lattes to the coffee experience, we explore it all because life's too short to drink bad coffee. Here we go.
So hello and welcome to this episode of the Coffee Snobs. This one's special. I'm very excited because we have two new guests on today. And man, was that a hot cup of coffee?
That's some hot coffee.
Yeah, so that is Lucas. Lucas, your last name?
Ward.
Lucas Ward.
W-A-R-D.
So Lucas is a employee here at LocDoc. He is a phenomenal programmer, computer programmer. I mean, like, he writes amazing code. He is our app developer here at LocDoc and just an all-around good guy. But I wanted to have him on the show today, and I also have someone else on the show that has never been on before. And who do we have?
Sam Gray.
Oh, Sam Gray, guys. The old Gray. Man. And so both of these guys are on for a reason. Sam is, what is your title here at LocDoc?
Purchasing manager.
So you would think, what in the world? Why do we have a computer programmer and a purchasing manager on the Coffee Snobs podcast?
Indeed.
Both positions require copious amounts of coffee.
Copious.
That's true.
Copious
That's
amounts.
Very true.
And so I wanted to have them on because here at LocDoc, we have a pretty high standard for coffee.
Yes.
And so today's topic is going to be about workplace coffee and kind of a revolution that has really, it's booming for a lot of high-end, very upper-level corporate progressive companies. And a lot of tech industries are putting in coffee shops in their actual workplace and providing high-level coffee for their employees. And just want to kind of talk through that because I am a new employee here at LocDoc, but for a while, y'all have had extremely good coffee.
Yes.
But before we get into that, I wanted to hear your journey into coffee. So we're going to start with Lucas. And so this podcast, we like to know the foundation. Where did you start drinking coffee and how did you start drinking coffee?
So I remember being very young growing up. My dad would always have a cup of coffee, straight black, and he would drink that every morning, and he would always leave a little bit in the pot for me. And of course, I would add a large amount of cream and sugar because I was a teenager, and I would drink coffee on the school bus on my way to school. And my whole life, I just drank drip coffee and thought it was the greatest thing ever. And then I discovered espresso kind of around the same time everyone else did when Starbucks opened. And now coming to LocDoc, my eyes have been opened very wide. And there's pour over and French press and just all the different brew methods we have here. And now looking back, it's like, man, all those years I spent drinking just straight Folgers. It's crazy.
It is crazy. And so I think that's a journey that a lot of people can agree with and kind of like side with. And so, Sam, what about you? How was your coffee journey?
Very similar to Lucas's. Actually, I started drinking coffee with my grandfather. He would make it every morning and drink it. And so I kind of started getting into it very, very young, like 8 years old, drinking coffee. So it's always been part. But again, very similar to Lucas, I always drank drip coffee. That's always what was made. So, and I never really got into Starbucks even. Yeah. To me, that was just for if you wanted frappuccinos, which is basically ice cream. So, which is good, but I never really got it. It has its place. It has its place. No, I like frappuccinos. Don't get me wrong, but that just was the only reason I went.
Frappuccino.
That's the only reason I went to Starbucks. So I actually started really drinking it once I started here, which I started here during the dark ages when we had nothing but a Keurig.
Dude, it was many moons ago.
Yes, which I think right before I started here, we actually had a bun.
The bun, dude. Bun. And so the bun, Chad's told the story about the bun where the cup was just oh my gosh, it was like so stained. And actually, Chad sent me a photo of this coffee cup because I think it was the previous owner had the bun coffee machine
Yep.
and a coffee cup that had stains on it. And if it, I could be getting the story mixed up, but I think it was just so ridiculously nasty.
Yeah, which it was gone by the time I got here, but I know it was right
Yeah.
around the time I started. They had just gotten a Keurig, I believe, and so we used that, which that was
Yeah,
you know,
revolutionary.
yeah,
I mean,
to
like,
me at the
yeah.
time,
Simplicity.
Yeah.
So, and then we finally got an espresso machine, and it was like,
Oh, dude.
what are we getting into right
Yeah,
now?
seriously.
Yeah.
And so it's been a spiral, and I wish a lot of people could understand the different levels of coffee, because as we both stated in this, both of your stories were very similar. My story, I've said it many times, but I didn't start drinking coffee till my first child. So I was like 26. So
Wow.
it was, seriously, I was a late bloomer to the coffee game, but I started drinking it straight black. And so y'all started at a very young age with, mass freeze-dried Folgers, right? And so coming to the masses. And so now you've come here to LocDoc, and Chad has opened the Pandora's box.
Yes.
And so I want to talk about our current methods here. And I'm going to give whoever wants to take one of our options and explain one of them. It could be where we're going to go. Lucas, lead us off. So,
All right,
what's one of the methods that we have here at LocDoc?
So I personally was blown away by the siphon brew. I'm as a programmer obviously very into math and science, and I was like, this looks like a straight up chemistry lab experience. We got a Bunsen burner,
Right.
and things are bubbling and transferring containers, and it was just really cool. But then I tasted it and was like, okay, this is the smoothest cup of coffee I've ever had in my
Dude,
life.
is it not?
It is.
It's crazy.
So,
It's-
okay, if you don't know what we're talking about, a siphon brew, essentially you have a heat source underneath, what are we going to call that? A vessel?
reservoir.
Reservoir. We'll call it a reservoir. Good call. Good.
Nice,
Man,
nice.
such a good with the verbiage. So you've got this heat source underneath a Bunsen burner that in the reservoir that's holding water, it's boiling the water, and then you have what are we going to call the top portion?
Top reservoir.
Top reservoir. Look, that's where
upper reservoir.
the upper reservoir. And so what you have is you have a area that holds the coffee, and then when you press it down, it creates a vacuum.
Yep.
And so the hot boiling water underneath in the lower reservoir, lower reservoir, shoots up through the top of the upper reservoir, brewing a cup of coffee. So as long as you have the heat on the bottom, it keeps the
Yep.
coffee brewing and steeping up the top. And as soon as you remove the heat, after a few moments, the coffee water now comes back through the coffee into the lower vessel.
Yep.
And it is butter smooth.
Oh,
It's
so
very
smooth.
good. It's
So
it's like
good.
the ultimate percolator.
It really is. It's so good. So if you've not had one and you're in the Charlotte area, I know Waterbean is the first place that I ever had it. They're a
Man,
coffee
just
shop.
come by the LocDoc
Exactly,
office.
dude. We're
We'll
right
hook
off
you
of
up.
77.
Yep.
You let us know when you're coming. Hit us up in the Instagram, the Coffee Snobs podcast, and we will have a siphon brew ready for you. And so that leads us to our next one. So, Sam, what is another process that we have here?
So the next option is espresso, the classic espresso machine.
Yeah.
So, which that's probably, I don't know if I would say it's my favorite, but it is definitely what I do the most.
Yeah.
But just running, we have a grinder here, so
Yep.
we grind our beans for
Yep.
the espresso machine into a little portafilter,
Yep.
which is just a little, I don't know what the best way to describe
It's
that
just
is.
a portafilter.
We'll just call it a coffee holder.
Coffee holder.
Exactly.
Yes. So the grinds go in there, a certain amount, specific amount for the shots, and you lock it into the espresso machine, hit your button, and you get 2 shots of how many ounces?
That's 2 ounces of 1 ounce per cup that we
1
have.
ounce per
Yep.
cup, yeah. And so pour that in. And I actually do something different. I run mine twice.
He
through the
does.
same portafilter, same grounds.
He does, and we had this conversation a while back because he did it, and I was like, "Hey, why'd you hit the button?" He's like, Well, I figured if I'm putting water, because he's essentially making Americana. So to explain it to you, he is taking 2 shots of espresso, 2 ounces of espresso, putting it in a cup, and we have a hot water dispenser on the espresso machine.
Yes.
He's filling the cups that were filled with coffee espresso. He is filling those with water, hot water, and pouring those in to essentially make a 4 to 6 ounce cup of coffee that is blazing hot. And I think that's what we all at the table have right now.
There's 3 cups sitting
And
on the table now.
and that is where LocDoc goes through the most beans. And so he takes and will just hit the button again, and instead of filling it with water, he just pours over, which would essentially
It's just a longer shot.
it is a long yes.
It's not quite 2 shots. It's just a longer.
It's just a longer,
shot,
yeah. So you can go to most places and ask for a long shot, and it's kind of an over extracted shot. To
Call that a
me,
double.
So essentially, with an over extracted shot, it becomes a weaker, less room for bitterness. I would say.
It's a little bolder than if you just put water in there.
Correct.
But for me, if I'm double shot, putting a double shot in there, then it's a lot more bitter. So you either have to get a bigger cup with more cream, or just if I just over extract it, I get a little more bold, and
Yeah. I mean,
I could use the same amount of cream and sugar.
That's the thing with a double shot on our machine. It's potent. I mean, you're talking about 160 milligrams of caffeine, which if you just do 2 ounces, that's 80 milligrams of caffeine. Especially if it's just in water in an Americana, it packs a punch.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, when I started here, I literally thought I was going to have a heart attack because Chad's like, "You ready for your second cup?" I'm like, "I'm only halfway through the first one, and I feel like I'm going to explode."
yeah. And so we have another process, and I'll kind of lead us into that one. We have a French press, and so that is, if you don't know what a French press is, essentially you have a vessel, and then you put a certain amount of coffee in it. You put hot water, you let it steep, and then you put pressure down on pressing out the coffee, pressing the water through the coffee as you press it down to the bottom. Then you pour your French press into a cup and you consume it. It's really good.
Yep.
And so it's kind of I think it's the entry ramp, the on ramp for a lot of people that are getting into coffee.
Right.
Because
Yes.
I think you can go to Target and get a French press.
Yes.
Yeah,
So-
$15.
Yeah.
That's
And
a pretty nice one.
It makes good coffee.
It does.
Great
It
coffee.
does. You'll get a little bit of sludge at the bottom,
Yes.
Sure.
but
I like a little sludge, a
who
little
doesn't
cowboy
like
style,
that? Exactly.
Yeah.
Cowboy style. So, and then we have one more. Does anybody know who that is?
Pour over.
Pour over.
I just got one as a gift for my personal coffee consumption.
Chemex.
Which is,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
Chemex pour over. It's the only way to go.
It is. It really is. I mean, it makes the most consistent good cups of coffee. I think, and it's a good experience.
Yeah, it's sort of the whole process of brewing a pour over is just quite enjoyable. You sit there, you can see the coffee react to the hot water, and you kind of have to babysit it a little bit. So when you finally get that first sip, it's already cooled down enough to drink, and it's just like you worked hard for that.
Exactly.
At that point, so it's so much more enjoyable.
Yeah, and actually, now that I think about it, the pour over and the French press was actually what we were using whenever we were moving from the Keurig to the espresso machine. So at one point, Chad would basically make this huge pour over or a French press, depending on what he felt like.
Yeah.
For pretty much everybody in the office.
We have three French presses
Yes.
up on the shelf because at that time, I think they were like 18 employees, and y'all didn't have the espresso machine at that time.
Right.
So they were making a lot of coffee. And so I want to get into workplace coffee because we kind of set a of the methods that we have.
Yep.
But from your productivity,
Oh man, coffee in, code out. That's how it works.
so I'm definitely very interested in it because I read up on NVIDIA. They are a graphics card company, and they do other things. But in their facility out in California, they put a gorgeous, like super bougie coffee bar on an entire floor.
Oh wow.
The whole floor.
Like it's a meeting space, but it's a coffee spot.
Yeah, yeah.
Let's be honest. It would be like a cafeteria with a coffee bar. And so they talked about essentially caffeine dosing.
Right.
And how you can post after lunch, have a lunch, you kind of that 2 p.m., 3 p.m. like lag.
Oh yeah.
Dude, we don't have that here at LocDoc.
Right.
No, it's full throttle 100% of the time, and it's just go, 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 go. 'Cause
Yes.
everyone's just drinking tons of coffee,
Here lately, me and Chad, I literally have had to record our conversations from 3 to 4 p.m. when we do have them, because he'll have a cup and I'll have a cup, and we're talking so fast. It's ridiculous. But, how has, Sam, like your journey of coffee, what is your routine of coffee?
So I drink one every single morning.
Single morning.
Most afternoons, kind of as I get over the biggest hump of most of my tasks accomplished, I get kind of a time for a break. That time varies for me.
Yeah.
But usually between 2 and 4, I'll stop what I'm doing, go take a 20-minute break, make another. That's when I like to do my pour over or my siphon.
Yep.
If I have time, I love doing the siphon in the afternoon because it's just smoother.
Yeah.
I'd love to touch on that. The genius thing is people in an office space they're going to take breaks and migrate to common areas no matter what.
Yep.
So by putting the common area with an espresso machine or other coffee brewing methodologies, you're then turning that what normally would just be wasted time into something that turns into productivity time. So you got people in there drinking coffee, suddenly they're collaborating, and then they're running back to their desk because they've just had some bright idea. And
So what you're saying is, okay, because LocDoc is onto something.
Yes.
Essentially, you put a common area around coffee,
Yes.
around something that is going to an area where you can go to, not lounging. If you walk into our coffee room, essentially there's going to be people with computers, having a cup of coffee, conversating, really brainstorming. So what you're saying is we've essentially an incubator for ideas and.
Oh yeah.
Would you say was that a yes or
an incubator?
I mean, it's like the idea incubator.
I mean, people
Yeah,
aren't going to
better.
have a cup of coffee and then go take a 30-minute nap, Right. They're going to drink the coffee and
Yeah.
while they're at work, so they might as well use that energy for productivity.
Yeah. I know my coffee consumption I had an espresso machine at the house before I came here, so my level of coffee snobbery and consumption was pretty high.
Yeah.
But let me ask you this: with all of the different methods, you would ask most coffee connoisseurs, and you have to feel like you've got to have a certain understanding to do a siphon brew or to do a pour over properly or espresso machine. Like what are your thoughts on that? Because we have we got a lot of techs. They're not coffee connoisseurs, right?
Right,
They're
right.
they're like they get an opportunity once or twice a day to come through the office. They'll grab a cup of coffee, head back out the door. Like how has LocDoc made having a good cup of coffee easy or obtainable to somebody that may not be the snob?
I think it's baked into our culture. When someone comes by and they want a cup of coffee, that's an opportunity to get to know somebody and chit chat and share knowledge, which is everyone loves to do that.
Yeah.
And so oftentimes when we have new employees start, they get asked by 10, 15 people a day, hey, you want a cup of coffee? Because everyone wants the chance to share that knowledge and open their eyes, to the wonderful world of coffee.
Right.
Yeah, I think you're definitely onto something. Like they've created a culture around if there's somebody in the front office or there's a meeting, you don't ask them anything else but, hey, would you like a cup of coffee?
Yeah.
And that's very exciting.
Yeah, and that I remember a lot of people, and there are exceptions, but there's so many people that have started here. I don't really drink coffee, and sure enough, give them a couple weeks, maybe a month, and they're drinking. They're drinking coffee every day, every time they come by here. Zach Pfeiffer was the main example. He used to come here with a cup of Circle K coffee, and every single day, and we would give him so much, and he's like, "Oh, there ain't nothing better than this," And now every single morning he comes in there and gets 2 shots of espresso in his cup and drinks that coffee. So
I used to be come to the office and have my first cup of coffee, but I've found I can't stand the commute without a coffee first. So now I wake up and I make coffee for my wife and myself, and then that way the commute is much more enjoyable. When I get here, I'm already almost ready for the second cup. And this is my third cup.
So what are you making at the whole? I mean, now you're making pour over, but what are you?
I was using the French press because it's about an 8-minute process, start to finish, and in the morning times I like to wake up, get ready, and hit the road. So that's pretty quick, and it's a good cup of coffee.
So for me, I have a Keurig at home. So when I'm not here, I don't get good coffee basically. So it's either, I usually just come here and this is my first cup, because the Keurig, and even on the weekends when I'm drinking a Keurig, it's like, this is just, basic. And if I stop by a gas station, I can't stand that coffee anymore. They used to be all I drank too, but I drink that drip coffee from the gas station and I'm just like, what is this? This is water. It's just so bland to me now.
Yeah, it's definitely. I'm very interested in the productivity from office staff, and with good high level coffee, not bun coffee in there.
So most people in knowledge workers or office people that are on the computer, there's this state called flow, and that's when you're zoned in and you're focused and you're just getting stuff done, right? Coffee puts you into that state faster, more frequently, and allows you to be more productive while in that state. So for me, if I'm tired and I'm in my flow state, I may be easily distracted and not get very much coding done. But if I've had a good cup of coffee, then almost as soon as I sit down at my computer, I'm like craving that single focus point state that I refer to here as flow, and the coffee is instrumental in that stage being achieved and then maintained for a period.
So, guys, this is great knowledge right here, because there's very few people that cram as much content and code out than this guy, Lucas. I mean, like, seriously, he is a freaking code ninja, and you'll see him like just hammering away at the keys, like just going to town. Because currently we're building an app. We've been building an app for a while, and then when I say we, I mean Lucas.
Well, there's been some help.
Yeah, let's be honest. Like, he's a very generous guy, but he is a code ninja, and so he has done a very good balance of coffee to keeping in that flow, and so if you're a business that does have coffee, you're an owner that has coffee, or you're a business, you work at a place that has coffee, we would love to hear about it. Seriously would love for you to drop your comments in. What are your thoughts on corporations putting in high-level coffee machines? I know Lowe's, their corporate office, has a really, really nice coffee bar.
Really?
Very, very nice setup. I've done some work at their facility, and I know there's Huga just put in a Not Just Coffee in one of I think they did a collaboration.
Yeah.
Co-working spaces they're doing everything right. They got coffee. They usually have a kegerator, and
that's not yet.
That's the next step.
We're working hard
for nitro cold brew. Of course.
There we go. And we're actually like that has been a conversation, but one of the concerns here at LocDoc is it would just get guzzled. Like we would finish it before like the day's over.
Right.
If they could find a way to put the coffee just straight into a IV pack, I would hook up to that.
I think all of us here. I think that would be like, that would be a rite of passage.
Right.
So guys, thank you so much for taking time to come on and talk about workplace coffee and your journey with coffee. I greatly appreciate it. I know it was definitely a good conversation.
Oh, yeah.
There's going to be many more of this.
Yes.
So if anybody would like to reach out to you on Instagram, we like to share our tags. Mine is Aaron Beaver, AARONBEAVER. If you'd like to tell us where they can find you, great. If not,
Instagram is PsychWard 061515.
Yeah,
Nice.
Psych Ward.
And I am at Worth the Fight 51.
There you go. So listen, I greatly appreciate you coming on, sharing your knowledge, sharing
Thanks for
your
having
stories
us.
with us. And we will see you next time for another Coffee Break Podcast.